So hello and welcome to another segment of Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition. My name is Elisa William, and today I have the pleasure of talking to Anne-Marie Maglione, Director of the Orange County Office of the Aging, and Dr. Larry Force, Professor of Psychology and Director of Center of the Aging and Disability Policy at Mount St. Mary College. Our special guest today is Dr. Geri Abbatiello, who is here to talk to us a little bit about how spirituality can carry us through these times, not only in COVID as we shut down and reopen, but also as we turn inward and have to build on that strength that comes from within. So Anne-Marie, do you want to kick us off today and explain a little bit about what's new in elder abuse?
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm delighted to be here. This, as we've said before, this really was born out of COVID-19. I work with many colleagues, St. Luke's Hospital, Mount St. Mary College, Dr. Larry Force, Elisa Williams, and we realized that the way we normally do it is to go out and talk to people and have events and have symposiums. We couldn't do anymore because everybody was staying at home. They were socially isolating, which we know was a really serious time for people that are victims of elder abuse and scams. So we couldn't just sit at home and socially isolate too. We needed to then say, if they can't come to us, we're going to come to them. Thus is born the Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition. And I will tell you, it has been incredible. We have been getting so much feedback and people are really grateful for it. What we found is we're also growing because as we're going through this and as we're giving people the tools that they need and the support that they need, we found that there's so much more to this. And you know, Geri, I think we're thrilled that you are here today because you are going to be talking about a really important component of it, and all of these together are going to eradicate this epidemic. And it is an epidemic that we are dealing with during a pandemic. But I always say something good always comes out of bad. And I think that is this coalition, because education and awareness is the only thing that is going to take care of this. So I'm thrilled to be part of this team, and welcome.
And let me pick up from there that Dr. Abbatiello, we are so glad that you are here. You know, as Anne-Marie indicated, you know, we started off, the college through our Center on Aging and Disability Policy and Orange County Office for Aging. We have a long track record of working together, both from the county perspective side and also from the academic side. So we ended up finding ourselves in this elder abuse awareness arena. And we're out there and we're doing presentations and we're doing conferences. And then the next thing you know, here we are with COVID-19. And we realized that we had a lot of content knowledge and we wanted to be able to get it out to the families and individuals and agencies. And here we are with this video cast, with all the supporting information that's out there on our website. And I keep going back to this over and over again, but Anne-Marie, Tim Murphy, and I had a conversation April the 1st, 12 days later, through Elisa Williams and the team that's working with her. Here we are. What's the focus? The focus is to allow people to be aware of the fact that although these guidelines have isolated or separated people, you don't have to do this alone. And Anne-Marie and Tim and all the other resources that we brought to the table. We had the county executive on. We had the director of the State Office for Aging on. And the takeaway message is, we are here. You don't have to do this alone. We are available for you. And if you see something or hear something and you need to call us, understand it's confidential. So as we're working through this series, it's been so well received on both the state level and local level and national level that we're now talking about what we're calling like season 2. We are so glad you're here though, because of the fact that, as we talked about offline, the focus has been, if you feel there's a sense of abuse or some type of concern that's going on, you can reach out. But here you are. You and I have known each other for over 25 years. You know, we've worked together. And one of the things I've always been taken by is how seated you are in your spirituality, how seated you are in your ability to have people reflect and go inside, not necessarily outside. So with that, it really truly is, and I mean this from the heart on so many levels, a great pleasure to introduce you, Dr. Geri Abbatiello.
Thank you, my friends. So the idea of speaking of spirituality in this day is so connected to who we understand we are and our reality as it's being transformed for us and in us. And it's time, it's a time to begin to think about who this person that we are, what is the meaning that we see and can inform things with. So as I've been working with many older people, and they're separated from their support groups, their sense of church or synagogue or whatever religious perspective they have, it might be important for them to know that those religious communities are willing to be out there helping, even if it's only by phone. But from my perspective, what this is calling us all to is to recognize the resilience that most elder people have already had over their life. Mm. They've made it through wars and families and illness and death. And that sense of struggle and success can be the fabric of what helps people be hopeful to the future. The idea that each of us has some inner wisdom figure, whatever religious perspective, whatever, whether it's nature that tells us things grow and die and grow again, or it's an inner guide, and whether that is a person or a spirit, it really only matters to each of us to be able to conceptualize that. So as I've been working, I've been asking people, who is it that you look towards? And are you listening to what is going on inside? The other part of that is people are afraid. And when afraid, it seems to me that it does make things more difficult, because in that fear, we wind up having our thoughts think us instead of us thinking our thoughts.
Love it.
And that becomes incredibly important, because at one level, we begin to just give away our own peace. We give away what could be there to be helpful to us, that none of us are alone. So.
You know, I want to say this, Geri. I mean, what you just said about, our thoughts, think us versus we think our thoughts. It's interesting because you brought up a point that I'd not really thought about as we're doing this series. And the point is that, we talk about elder abuse as though it's something that's being done to us by somebody else. And what you've raised the point of is the elder abuse, the isolation, the thinking that we really do to ourselves, and the impact that has. And that's a whole different dynamic of what we talk about elder abuse. I mean, one of the things we talk about is nobody talks to us more than we talk to ourselves.
Exactly.
And the reality is that, you bring up something that, people are, and the other thing I like is the resiliency. I went to a conference one time and I heard this Nicole Schumpf, who's an epidemiologist, and she said, you know, the good news is that the population that's alive today is going to live longer than the generations before us. And everybody was shaking their head, feeling a sense of, you know, that's good. But then she dropped a statement that the whole place went quiet, and it was a packed auditorium. And she said, yes, we're going to live longer, but we're going to live longer in disabled states. You know, we're going to live longer in disabled states because of the fact that, you know, because of the medical intervention, people are going to live longer, but we're going to live longer in disabled states. And that because of the fact that the group that's alive now, the older of the old, the eldest of the eldest, they're really the strongest of the strongest. I mean, they have survived, okay, not only environmental things that you were talking about, you know, wars and things like that, but they have not been exposed to antibiotics as much as the population that's younger. You know, they've been able to be resilient and get through, you know, disease trends. So they really are the most robust of the robust. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that and about how you could, yes, it's true that nobody talks to us more than we talk to ourselves, and we have a tendency not to say great things, but maybe strategies of how people could say those types of things. You know, talk, like it's that increased self-talk in a more positive way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the idea that when I say that we're very disciplined about having negative thoughts, meaning thoughts that are not helpful. How disability was not what I wanted, how my ability to see or hear or walk is not the way I wanted to live these last few days, or few years, or many years. So what I'm finding is that the notion of being disciplined and saying, is this thought helpful? And how do you know? Is that you actually feel inside your body. You may become aware of a stomach ache, or your chest is tight, or you're agitated or irritable. And so what we need to be able to do is say, how does this feel? Now, if it doesn't feel good, then all that's happened is I've made a mistake. And I've made a mistake from which voice I'm listening to. I either listen to a voice for peace or fear. And the fear is going to be represented in how anxious, how frightened I am, how much information and import I give to the fact that I can no longer do the things of the past. So part of what I ask people is when your child was having a nightmare and you go into the room as they're yelling, before you walk in the room, you put on the light so that you can see. And inside us, there is a light, and it's articulated for each of us individually. But recognizing that that light's there, and then asking for help from that guide. I don't feel good. I don't like the way this feels. I must have made a mistake. I didn't do anything horrible. I just made a mistake. And the only mistake I made was, which choice? Do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? One will make you feel better than the other. But it takes a certain amount of discipline. We can't have our mind wandering. And so part of what I suggest to folks is actually watch where their minds are. You know, is it looking at just this room that I can't get out of, or that no one calls me, or maybe, oh, you know, this is a good time for me to call somebody else. I just need to hear a voice. And when we get on, we don't demand something. We just said, you know, I thought of you, and I think it would just be nice to hear your voice. And that's helpful, whereas having someone not call you or call and say, I haven't heard from you, what's wrong, is not helpful. It shares guilt and it makes you feel bad because you've said something that isn't really the issue. The issue is, I need to be connected to you. I need to be able to say what a delight you are in my life, and I miss you. So there is a certain discipline that happens in any spirituality, and there's a corollary discipline where we don't watch our thoughts. So watching my thought is where it's going on. And sometimes I explain it to people, and only older people get this, is if you have a radio on and you put it on the wrong channel, you get a lot of chatter and crackly noise, and you can't actually hear. But when you put it on the right channel, you actually hear the voice and direction of that inner self. And so I kind of use it as a metaphor, if you will.
You know,
I think that's a great metaphor.
Emery, please.
I think that's a great metaphor. I think there's so many people have static in their lives. And I will tell you, I've been writing down things that you're saying because they're so profound. Giving away our own peace. I think that's so profound. And I think that does happen. When Dr. Force was talking about the greatest generation, that is the greatest generation. And what we are trying to do is to tell people not to give away their inner peace, get rid of the static. And when you have a child who's lost their job and is now taking care of you and feels like it's totally acceptable to bring you to the bank and make you take money out to better their lives, we're giving up our inner peace. What would you say to somebody that's in a situation like that? And unfortunately, many people are in a situation like that. So the older adult is now feeling vulnerable, feeling very much dependent on the child, where the child is now justifying taking advantage of the older adult. And the older adult feels, I have to give my inner peace away to make my child have peace.
Well, you know better than I do that there's always these bargains in relationships, right? And in a sense, when I don't trust that you will be there for me, I participate in creating an event that says, all right, I'll give you this money, but you have to give me something back in return. Right. The unfortunate part of that is it's sourced in fear, and so people do it, and the only thing that can happen with fear is that it extends itself. Mm-hmm. So what I would suggest to people is knowing what your finances are and what you need, to be able to ask, sort of go inside and ask, what's the most loving thing for yourself? And trust that inner guide will give you the right answer, because out of that will become the sense of all things are right, versus I'm giving you my money because I feel guilty, and right. Guilt is the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah. And so that you want people to understand that giving doesn't always mean I have to give it in the form you're asking. And here's an incredibly important part of what spirituality is as we develop. And that is the notion that I can make a difference between form and content. So when I give out of content, and content is only love or fear, not out of form. I mean, maybe giving you my money will make you happy temporarily, mm-hmm. but it's going to impinge on my own safety and happiness. So I can see you calling for help, and I will give it to you in a more powerful way by not letting you actually grow in guilt and not letting you be fearful or intimidating me. I hear that you want my money, and I can really understand that. But when I think about that, I just need to let you know that I care for you and I love you, and I will keep you in my heart and thoughts. But if I give you the money, I don't think it'll be helping either of us. Does that sound?
I think it's brilliant, and this is why we have you on, because your words of wisdom are so powerful and so important. And I love that you said guilt is the gift that keeps giving, because it absolutely is, and it just snowballs and gets worse and worse. You know, Office for the Aging and Adult Protective Services are going to be starting a gatekeeper initiative when our new world opens up, and it's really just going to be educating the public, whether it be the pharmacist or the hairdresser or the grocery clerk or the bank teller, on signs of elder abuse and fraud, and to be able to incorporate your spiritual part into it. And the outcome of this gatekeeper is to get something at the core before it blows up into such a huge thing that it's really tearing the family apart. And the way you said it was just so perfect that, you know, there may be underlying things, you know, when you have, and I'm talking about family abuse and fraud, because a lot of that is by a family member or somebody that they know. So there's a lot of family dynamics in there. There's a lot of history there. And if you could just peel that onion back and just have the pureness that you just mentioned, you know, we could stop doing these right now. We would be all done. So thank you.
Amory, that point you make is so well taken. And I think, you know, when we would do the assembled forms of this elder abuse stuff, you know, the sheriff would come in, the DA would come in, the medical people would come in, and I would intentionally ask to go last on that panel. Because one of the things I would say is that if you really want to stop elder abuse, teach people how to fight back. But I didn't mean physically fight back. Mm-hmm. I meant to be able to stand up for yourself. And this is not something that happens, you know, when you see a family member or a grandchild heading towards your door. This is something we should be practicing all the way through our life, you know, to be prepared for this, to be, you know, to get solid, to get right with this. And this question of, you know, getting almost to a response of how dare you try to do that to me, you know, to me as my bank account, to me as a person. And that's really what you're representing here today, Geri, you know, the personhood issue of this, how to become stronger so that you can create a defense, or how to become stronger. You don't even get into the defensive thing. I remember doing a conference with you, Anne-Marie, and one of the things that I encouraged people to do was put their hands over their head, learn how to cower. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, if you're going to cower, you better get good at it.
Right. Like, that was powerful.
What are you talking about? Well, I mean, you can cower and you can get ready, or you can learn how to fight back. Mm-hmm. And the skill set that Geri brings to the table, she's bringing an army to the table. Mm-hmm. You know, there are no coincidences. Oh, and this is not a commercial for Blinkist, but Blinkist is an app where you can download, you know, books, and they're audible books, so you can read them, but they condense them. You know, you can use them in, you know, as you're walking or driving or whatever. And there was a book that I listened to a couple days ago, and I think it was called One Small Prayer. And the one small prayer is, please heal my fear-based thoughts. They said it was 6 words. Please heal my fear-based thoughts. I thought about that. And then as I continued to listen to this, something else came up, is that another statement was that every day is a new life to a wise person. You know, so here we are. So we talk about how do we stop these trends? You stop these trends when you're ready to stop these trends. You know, we know that we have done, I think, an unbelievable job of being able to present people with a unified voice, that they don't have to do this alone. There's services out here. You and your staff and your cohort are a phone call away. Now we bring Geri in. Geri has a different message about strength and elder abuse and all the other stuff. And that is to go inside, okay, and to really stop that thinking. And you have choices to make. You know, and I think that, you know, Geri, maybe, I want you to get back into, you know, summarizing this, because at this point we're going to turn it back to Alyssa. But what is it that you would want, and then Alyssa will walk you through how people can contact you, but what is it that you would want people to really walk away with? Maybe 2 or 3 points, bullets that you know, they've listened to what you said and the wisdom is unbelievable. What is it you'd hope that somebody would walk away with as far as being able to think, you know, think about thinking of what you've said?
So that we didn't get to the point where our minds think us all the time quickly. We got it by punishing ourselves for the mistakes we've made in life. And so forgiveness is a major part of it. And so I think if we can learn to forgive that we're not perfect. We weren't perfect parents, siblings, children, and that as we make this choice in the quiet of our own homes, just paying attention to what my thoughts are, paying attention and say, this one isn't working anymore. It may have worked in the past, but it doesn't work anymore. And then to begin to look at what are the things that helped you get through those hard times, you know, the resilience and the significant information on resilience over the years. It says you have coping skills, you have an ability to move beyond the boundaries that you thought, and that you have the ability to hope for something different. And in that hope, you will be connecting with that inner power and asking for what is the best way I can choose not to let fear run my life in this moment. And I know you've spoken before about the mindfulness, and it's an incredibly important part, because as I'm mindful of what it feels like to be fearful, as I'm mindful about what it makes me feel when I let go of one old memory that just haunts me, as I'm mindful that I have done my best in each situation, perfect or not, I can move forward and I can choose something different in this moment. It may not stay with us forever, but the discipline helps us to return there each time.
That's wonderful. Alyssa? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Abbatiello, for being here. If you'd like to contact Dr. Geri Abbatiello directly, you can reach her at Dr. Dr. Geri, Gri, Abbatiello, Abbatiello @gmail.com.
Let me just make a little change there. It's
Sure.
Dr.Geri, Geri, and then my last name.
Okay.
I think you left out.
Would you want to give your phone contact as well?
Sure.
Because the other thing that we've not talked about is that Geri has a private practice, and she's an unbelievable practitioner.
Probably going to see her, I think.
Yeah. Me too. Well, thank you.
Geri may want to give her phone number though.
Sure, 914-299-0256.
Beautiful.
And it'll say this is Dr. Abbatiello or Center for Life's Journeys, which is the name of the business.
Beautiful. And Alyssa, before you close, you need to know from all of us, you know, our gratitude for the skill set you bring to the table to moderate this and weave this all together. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Alyssa.
And actually, before we go, Anne-Marie, do you want to give the number to call to anybody who needs to reach out and wants to make an anonymous note of something that they're witnessing in the community?
That would be great. Thank you. You can call our New York Connects, which is our single point of entry. It's 845-615-3710. It doesn't have to be about abuse or fraud. It can just be about anything that you maybe need help with. 845-615-3710. If you do suspect that you or someone else might be a victim of elder abuse or fraud, you can call our Adult Protective Service number at 845-291-2800. It can be anonymous. You don't have to give your name, so if you're not sure, just still do it. I always say err on the side of caution. Best case scenario is it's nothing, but we will certainly check it out. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. You've been listening to Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition. And if you would like to hear this program again or share it with friends, even comment on it, you can do so by logging on to our website, www.elderabuseawarenessvirtualcoalition.com. On our website, you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and sign up for our newsletter. We hope you join us again next week as we continue our conversation about elder abuse awareness.